Well, good morning, everybody. We're pleased today to have Representative Sara Cambensy of Marquette. Sara and I have known each other for many, many years. She serves in the 109th District, and she is only the second woman to serve from the Upper Peninsula in the state legislature. The first one was from Barriga, Clara Anderson, I think, is, if I have that right. Welcome, Sara. Thank you for doing this early in the morning.
Yes, thank you.
So what are some of the issues that you think people in the UP ought to pay attention to? You're in session now in August, and between now and December, what are some of the things you think that will be happening that'll be of importance?
I think right now, the biggest, I guess, chance we have to make a difference, and this is a once in a lifetime chance, is just the influx of federal dollars to the state budget. People that have been around Lansing for a long time have said they've never seen a budget where you have an extra $10 billion plus, hopefully, a federal infrastructure package that's going to insert even more money into our budget this year. So what we are trying to do is be very strategic with that money. We're trying to plug as much of it as we can into our regular budget, free up some of those general fund dollars, and look at projects, boring but important, roads, bridges, water and sewer. Do those big projects that we typically bond for, so that for the next 30 years, we have more money to put into programming, mental health, things that doesn't matter what community you go to in the UP, people want, more, or they want to see us do more with these programs. So right now there's a lot of negotiating, a lot of planning for how we're going to do this, but really, if you see us focusing on kind of that boring, typical infrastructure stuff, it's because we're trying to get more money into the programming, whether it's schools, again, mental health, things that the communities really want to see as well.
Well, those are important issues throughout the UP. We hear regularly from local officials concerned about bridges and issues like that in the UP, and I suppose that's also, from what I read, true downstate. So those are important. I understand that you and the UP's Senator Ed McBroom are working on some tourism related bills. Could you tell us a little bit about your work in this area?
Yeah, with the influx of tourism that we've seen, Pure Michigan has been extremely successful. It has helped plug holes in our economy as we see some of the traditional jobs go away, whether it's mining and the timber industry. And it's allowed a lot of our small businesses to grow. And with that, we've seen kind of an exponential growth in some of our waterfront communities, that these are counties where you might only have a population year round of 10,000 people. But when you have an influx of 1.2 million, this year they're expected to be about 1.4 million in Alger County, it creates a problem in managing people. And so the bill package we're working on really is to allow some of our locals to capture some tax money off of transient housing. So we're looking at, where does Michigan compare to other Great Lakes states around us? And in the UP, our tax rate is actually low on transient housing. The hotels, the highest they collect, it's the 6% sales tax. They've got a 5% if you're in the CVB district, so our Convention and Visitors Bureau, you might be at 11%, but if you're not in that district, you're just paying that 6% sales tax, and that's it. With our short-term rentals, they aren't paying anything more than that 6%. So we're looking at this saying, gosh, when you go to Minnesota or you go to Wisconsin, you're paying 12, 13% sometimes in taxes, with a good chunk of that going to the locals. We need that here in Michigan. And so him and I have been working on how do we do that? What does it look like? Does it go to the counties, or does it go to, cities, townships, villages as well? And So we're working through the structural details, but just trying to get our locals that public safety guaranteed.
So on our Rural Insights website, we've done some research on the hotel tax and others. I think this is really an interesting area. So currently they collect it and it's spent on promoting tourism.
Right.
Would you change that? Would this money be used for infrastructure or public safety?
So because it's
Spent by the counties and cities, or would it be controlled by the hotels?
So because they do an assessment, it can't be used for government. So what we're proposing is, something alongside of that, that's an excise tax that allows it to be used for government purposes. And again, we don't want to step on their toes. We think they're doing a great job. It's a good problem to have when people want to come to your state and want to come and spend money. We just need to manage it. And so that's what we're looking to do is again, trying to allow our local municipalities just the resources to manage the people.
So it would be an excise tax that government could collect and spend locally.
Yes.
Would it replace the current hotel tax, or they'd still be collecting their
No.
CVT tax?
Yeah, they would still be collecting it. Doesn't interfere with them at all. It would just be kind of this additional tax, again, that has to be voted on. So right now the bill is written at the county level. You have to take it to a vote of the people. They have to approve it. And, within that language, we're hoping that they can work out, X amount stays with the county, X amount goes to cities or certain projects, and kind of manage it locally rather than having Lansing tell them, here's your one size fits all.
So, and also it seems to what you're doing, it seems to me is, if I'm hearing correctly, the people should be for this because they wouldn't be paying a tax. What we'd be saying is all the people coming in to our community, yes, using the roads and facility and policing and safety would pay this tax, right? This wouldn't, yes, be a tax on you and me and our neighbors.
Right. And, when you think about it, you have these small counties that, again, maybe have 10,000 people, but when you have that influx in and they're pulling your ambulance or your search and rescue or your sheriff's department out for rescues or whatever, it's leaving that community and that taxpayer vulnerable. So we just want to make sure that we have the resources or the staff or whatever it is for public safety to keep everyone protected and safe.
That's fascinating, very fascinating. Some of the original legislation goes back a long time, was really what Detroit at the time wanted to do.
Yes.
Make it a tax that government would spend, and the UP wanted to make it sort of a fee that could be collected by hotels and spent on promoting, and that's the two differences. Tell us a little bit about, we wrote something about it and got more response than I thought we would get about this, the state looking to control short-term rentals versus local municipalities, if I understood it correct. It's sort of confusing. Could you explain that for us, how it would work?
Yeah, this is one that basically, we're in a no-win situation. I think locals are in a no-win situation because, we've been doing this kind of thing where you rent out your cottage or your camp in the UP a few times a year to pay the taxes or whatever for decades. Now it's grown into, this is how people want to travel and live and kind of stay. And so, we're looking at other states and how do you balance the private property rights with, kind of that local control and keeping your neighborhood feel and, your certain zoning districts that, again, it's really a local thing that I agree, not many people or communities want to give up. But we're at a point where it seems the biggest question is, should we allow them or shouldn't we? And if we allow them, how do you in the same zoning district tell one, property owner that they can have something? Maybe you put an arbitrary number or a cap on it or a distance factor in there. And the person next door says, gosh, I'd really like to do that too. Why can't I? I live in the same zoning district and I have the same rules and regulations, but I don't qualify. And so that's the dilemma I think that the locals are in, and certainly even state legislators in terms of how much do we get involved. And so the bill you saw this spring was really saying that we must allow them if you're in a single family district.
Okay, so anybody, if you own a camp or your home and you want to rent out part of it, you could do it under the federal legislation, and your local municipality couldn't say on these 6 blocks you can do it, but on these 8 blocks you can't, is basically.
Yep, the feds, they have a 14-day rule. So for those 14 days, you can rent it out. And they did that so that if you wanted to rent it to family, or if you needed to rent it for a few weeks to help pay the taxes, we're not gonna, kind of hammer you on that. But after those 14 days, that's where you get into this local control and, is it a business versus a residence and all that kind of stuff.
So we recently, all of us read this beginnings of the census report, and the UP has lost, depending how you count, 6,000 to 10,000 citizens. And urban areas and metropolitan areas have gained, rurals have lost. The UP and Southeast Michigan, Detroit in particular, have lost. How do you see the legislature viewing rural areas? Do they, not just the UP, but we have 20 counties below us that are declared below the bridge down to Lansing that would be considered rural. Do they understand the needs, you think, or is it still, do we still have work to do about making sure that the legislature understands the uniqueness of cities and the urban centers and the uniqueness of rural areas?
I think this is the most important question facing not only the state legislature, but certainly our country. And that is, how do you make sure that rural America, rural Michigan, the UP has a voice, and our needs are certainly at the table. And this is why I think you see such a vast change even in, who's getting elected. I'm the only Democrat left north of Saginaw. It used to be entirely blue about 12 years ago. And that's a big change, but it signals to me that as my party, gets and puts out and promotes more of that urban message, rural Democrats like me are kind of left saying, gosh, the issues I'm facing really are a lot different than those in a larger city. And so, the work that Marty Fatante is doing with Invest UP, these organizations in the UP and these people that are really trying to solve that problem of, how do we take a long view, a 20 or 30-year view, and say, what do we need to do in rural Michigan to reinvest in these places so that they're not ghost towns, so that when some of the larger industries, contract or go away, we have something, that's there for the people. And I think attracting people to the area for our beauty, Traverse City, we joke about it. Everyone in the UP says we don't want to become that. But they are now, I think, starting that next step of attracting those small businesses, medium-sized businesses that want to move there because people want to live there. And I think that's coming, but I think the groundwork, and we need to kind of get that network of people, not only to do it in the UP for our communities, but really to be the sounding board for Lansing and help us carry that message down here.
Well, I think that's really interesting. I was saying to some folks locally that I think our competitors these days may be for what we want to do and bring especially young people, technology people, cyber people to the UP, as well as small business growth and others, tourism, is Traverse City down to Grand Rapids, is who's attracting them. And we want them to come the additional 5 hours up to us, 3 to 5 hours, depending where on the UP. And I think that is a test. Grand Rapids had a statement out where they've spent years tracking the young people from West Michigan who moved to Chicago. Very sophisticated study. And now they've reversed that. They've seen they're keeping people in West Michigan all the way up to Traverse City, but specifically Grand Rapids. So there's a lot to learn from, in a way, our competitors are building coalitions. So that's really interesting. Well, those are all interesting things. So are you am I correct? You're term limited this year?
I'm already term limited.
Or you are already? Wow, that went
Yes.
fast.
Yes.
It just always amazes me when I talk to somebody in the legislature, you know, I always forget it's 6 years in the House and it's like gone.
Yes.
So what's the next chapter for Sara Cambensy? Lieutenant governor, governor, you want to run for Congress? What do you want to do?
No plans to run for any further office right now. Again, and that kind of plays back into, you know, could a Democrat even get elected after we saw Bart Stupak step away in 2010? We haven't had another Democratic congressional person.
Right.
You know, in the Senate, same thing. When Mike Prucy left and was term limited out in 2010, we're on our second Republican state senator. And so, you know, I'm not quite sure the demographics are there for someone in my party to get elected. But I think because I've shown I can work together, you know, I love the bipartisan group. I mean, even in Congress, when you've got the group that sealed the deal really for the infrastructure bill that we'll hopefully see. I mean, those are the people and the type of person that gets things done down here. And at this point, I hope I'm inspiring some more Democrats, certainly for my seat, to get in the game and you know, try and make a difference and show that you know, there's still a common sense Democrat out there.
Well, and I think people, regardless of your party want their elected representatives to solve problems. I think you said it, you're absolutely correct. They look for that now. It's my life. I want you working people
Yes.
concerned about, and you all, and you know, you've done a lot of bipartisan work with Senator McBroom and others. There's sort of a tradition in the UP legislators of working bipartisan, and you've continued that. Well, I want to say thank you. I promised your staff I wouldn't keep you too long, other than
Yes.
talk to you again.
Yes, yes.
I know not to get staff angry at you, so
No.
so thank you
Yes.
very, very much. I'm sorry you're not up here enjoying the beautiful weather that we're currently having in your home, my home, and
Yeah.
I hope we can do this again soon.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a great day.
You too. All right, bye-bye.